Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Nicole and I'm here with Queen & Company today, creating a layout here using the foam front shaker inserts on an actual scrapbook page rather than on a card front. So these are definitely, made for card makers, but you can obviously use them on a scrapbook page very easily. I am using the Love foam front insert here, and I'm actually just going to stick it right down onto my layout. So it's kind of like a big foam square where you want to remove the back part, not the top part like I just did, but the back part of the foam front. And then you're just really able to fill it in however you'd like. So in my case, I removed the front in error, which you should leave on. There's a thin paper lining on the top. You should leave that on for when you do your filling like I'm doing here, so that your items don't stick to it, because essentially it is like a big foam square, and so everything can kind of really stick to it. Especially all these fun little toppings. So I'm just choosing different Queen & Company toppings, which are little fillers for all these shakers. I use some of the diamonds, the red diamonds, and everything comes in different colors. So you can see I'm using these yellow here. These are the tiny bubbles, and I'm going to add in some of the pearlies. And I'm just going to fill these in pretty tight. You don't need to fill them in all the way. You can definitely leave them so that when you shake your layout later, you can see, a gap in the space that's open. And in this case, that's some letters. But you can definitely fill them all the way tight. So in this case, I decided I wanted to kind of fill the whole thing tight. Now I have this fun funnel by Queen & Company, and these are tiny little micro beads, and those can kind of get really messy and all over the place. So that funnel is really perfect for kind of adding those in exactly where you want them. You can see how quickly they went in there. And then I'm just going to fill in with some of these donuts and little Fimo shapes as well into the L. And as you can see, because I removed that top layer in error, I'm getting a tiny little bit stuck to it. But that's not a problem, because now I'm going to cover the whole thing up now with the clear transparency, I guess you could call it, that comes with the design. And I'm going to cover the whole thing up with this die cut background. So there's coordinating dies that go with some of the foam fronts, most of the foam fronts actually, and this is the Love one, and so you can see it just die cuts perfectly and covers all of that foam background up. So really, really fun, except when I placed my clear backing on, I kind of had it off a little bit, so there's tiny little bit of clear showing, so I was just trimming that away. Now, the one thing I did when I worked on this layout is when I put the foam front down, I intended it to be straight, but it's not. You can see here with my ruler, there's a bit of a gap because it was on a bit of an angle as I was working. But that's not a big deal. I'm just going to go with the flow, and I'm going to create my layout here on the angle. So I'm just cutting some papers from the Pretty Presents 6x6 paper pad, which is nice, fun primary colors. So there's that red in there, there's some yellow and blue and all different colors, and those are the ones that I decided I wanted to use on my page. So I'm just going to trim all this down and then kind of work a bit of a pattern on the bottom half of my layout, working in the foam front. At first I thought I would kind of start at the top of the page, but then I realized because I kind of have a lot going on with the foam front and all the little toppings inside, that I would kind of leave the top more bare and kind of fill up the bottom part of the layout with those squares. So I started off doing all that, and then I realized, no, where I want to do this is along the bottom. It just seemed to make a little more sense, and sometimes that happens as you work through a project. Once what you start with or intend to do doesn't always work out in the end. So I'm going to fill in here with more of those squares, and I'm just trying to alternate the patterns and the colors. And because they all came from the same paper pad, they all coordinate, so it's not a problem kind of mixing up what to put with what. I'm just really trying to make sure I don't have two polka dots together or two big pieces of red paper together. I don't want to create that large of a block of color or pattern. Then I decided I really wanted to add to my title, and at first, as you'll see here, I was going to add part of my title to the bottom of this foam front because there's quite a bit of room that you could definitely do that. It would be perfect on a card as well to add like a sub-sentiment. But now I've decided I want to move this down onto underneath my photos, kind of just to kind of get things moving towards more of the bottom of the page rather than all in the center there. And so I've used these black letter stickers just because they're pretty neutral and they go with all the bold primary colors that's going on in this layout. And now it's just a matter of kind of filling in, and because it's on a bit of an angle, that caused me a few problems, but just kind of go with the flow, right? Nothing's wrong when it comes to scrapbooking. So I'm just going to add these underneath my foam front. And the good thing with the foam front is, as you saw, because in this case there's quite a thick border around the die cut word in there, you can kind of lift it up very gently, and it's kind of an adhesive too. It sticks down your paper that's in around there. So it's really kind of fun and nice and dimensional, which is kind of always good. So I'm just going to add these squares of paper, and I'm kind of fooling around a little bit with the placement of which pattern is going where, and then I decided some of them needed to be a little bit smaller and not all the same size, just to create a little bit of, I guess, interest on the bottom of the page. And I probably lifted up that foam front a few too many times, but it still sticks quite nicely, so I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm just going to finish this off, and then I decide while I'm working all these squares is that I'm going to sew all this stuff here at the bottom and kind of add a little bit of texture with that. So I'm just going to finish filling this all in, just alternating all the colors and making sure I have yellow kind of all the way across and red all the way across and some blue across so that they're not in the one area. And at first I thought I would do a few more pieces up at the top just to kind of balance off some of that pattern. But I said, forget it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to trim off this bottom because it's kind of busy. And then I'm going to go ahead and do some of that stitching. So really easy to trim that off with your trimmer. And there's kind of how it looks. So now I'm going to add some stitching across each of those rows, and then I've decided to take stitching and go all the way to the top of the page and then add some Queen & Company embellishments to the top of the page. So what you kind of can't see here on the white cardstock is that I've sewn all the way up and then across to create kind of like a frame around the page. And I'm just currently going through my stack of Queen & Company embellishments, which is already so large. There's lots of really fun ones, and I just kind of grabbed things in the 3 colors that I use. So I'm not really sure what I'm grabbing, but I'm starting off with the lollies, and they're kind of like these round flat circular discs with rings of white, and in this case blue, and some of the rivets, which are kind of like an enamel dot that's matte. So those are kind of fun, and just adding those to the corners of the stitching. Then I just added a little piece of the red striped washi tape. And then, as you can see here on the left side of the layout, I'm just continuing on adding more of those rivets and then along the side of where the stitching is, just to continue to bring those colors up to the top of the page. There's a bit of a close-up there of the left side of the page with the title. And you can see I've just added some stamping to the bottom of that foam front. It's a perfect way just to add a cute little embellishment to your project. And I really love how the foam front is kind of the center of attention there, right beside my photo, and it really adds a lot of embellishment while it's still pretty simple in the end. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again real soon.